Let's hear from Jen Psaki about the administration's policy on the Ukraine.
Shouldn't the threat of an invasion also carry?
Oh, Morgan, you have
referred to Treasury sanctions
special insight for us then.
Right?
Thank you.
We've also provided more assistance to Ukraine than any year in history, including defense assistance. Those are. But again, what we're making decisions.
Well, especially more than the year that Trump held it up, trying to blackmail Zelensky into making up a charge about his political opponent.
Based on decades of experience the president has, and decades of experience of our foreign policy team, and through consultation with
Walsh
on what is going to be.
I stopped by Walsh's channel the other day and thanked him.
Either he's going to decide to invade.
Glad to have you.
For severe economic
Thank you for being a freaking follower.
Or he's going to decide to engage in diplomatic discussions. It's important to remember who the aggressor is here. The aggressor is Russia and Putin. They are building up military troops. They are pushing out misinformation in Ukraine. That's who we need to keep our focus on. And
I am not high enough for this shit.
Go ahead.
Where do deliberations stand on the broader economic sanctions that you're planning? Has the president given a final sign-off on a package?
I don't have an update on that. I believe, Steve, that we're continuing to consider a range of options and haven't ruled out any that have been reported, but I don't have an update on the internal status.
Peter asked you whether you've been
bitches.
in touch with the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
Have any allies sought clarification of the president's remarks?
Well, Secretary Blinken saw his European counterparts this morning. I don't have any. I know he just spoke and I think answered questions.
Stop hitting on the restream bot. It's kind of creepy, RB.
Reiterated what.
Also, RB, on my freaking news this morning, like you laughed and then like you had like a shocked face. What was that about? I was confused. Fuck Jen Psaki. No, not literally. No. I mean, some of you might be into it. All right, this is my buddy Jake. Apparently, I'm still gonna get to go on his show.
Hey, guys.
I was worried that he wasn't going to have me on because I kept making fun of him. He added me on Facebook. This is the host of the Jake Jacob Show. Oh, I'm sorry, the wrong one. That was one of mine. Host of the Jake Jacob Show here. He's comparable size to my channel. And he's a far-right fucking nut job. Always talking about the loony leftists. And I'm afraid that I've probably shown too much of my hand, and he's probably not going to have me on because I'm going to destroy him. He was talking about voting rights with me earlier. And we've already passed voting rights years ago to stop Democrat systematic institutional racism. And my response was, dude, the Voting Rights Act of 1964 had to be reauthorized, like every 7 years? It has expired. That's what we are debating right now. That's what the John Lewis Act is. You don't even know what you're talking about. And yet you've got the audacity to get up on a channel and portray information to people like you're some sort of an expert. He's a doctor. He has a doctorate like theology. Calls himself Dr. Jake Jacobs. Speaks for like the Young Americans Foundation. Funded by all that right-wing Mercer Coke money. And then he was talking about reparations and the filibuster because that was something I commented on his post from MLK. I was like, do not let MLK's name come through your lips if you are not advocating against the filibuster for reparations. I went on a whole list. But he loves to, say he was a follower of MLK, that he cried the day MLK was assassinated. I've heard him tell these stories. But he don't push for the same policies that MLK did. So hopefully he's still going to have me on. I did a little Photoshop for him. I think it showed every episode is like the woke mob is coming for your kids, or the Marxist takeover of this. I kept calling it the fake outrage show. The Red Scare show. But apparently he was on with a foreign outlet. For some reason, they brought this chuckle fuck on. He was talking about how Biden is now Putin's new pawn.
Guys, welcome to the Jake Jacobs Show. I am so excited for the year 2022 as we now have a new format. We're going to be, the show will be aired Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 2 o'clock Central Time. And I'm going to be bringing in some incredible speakers from across this country.
Supposedly me.
That love America and understand that now is the time.
He doesn't think I love America.
For life and liberty. So please tune in to the Jake Jacobs Show. See you then.
Don't do that.
Located on its borders. Is it time for the US-led NATO to finally put its foot down? Has history taught us anything about negotiations with tyrant? Let's ask my first guest, academic teacher, historian, and author. He's the host of the Jake Jacobs Show. Welcome back to Rack, Dr. Jake Jacobs. So we got another part of discussion between the United States and Russia. We have Russia stating actually that the Soviet Union should be rebuilt, that the whole area of the post-Warsaw Pact should be the area of influence of Russian Federation. And the United States are talking to Russian, claiming, of course, that this is.
This was in Poland.
So what is your assessment of this meeting in Geneva and all other meetings and phone calls that have been made between Putin and Biden for the last weeks?
Happy 2022, Michael. Look, you used the word stalemate.
We're 20 days into 2022. This was just posted. It was posted on January 13th. My bad. I just saw him post it today.
Word checkmate. Putin is the Boris Spassky of this whole
Still 13 days.
Negotiation. We must remember something about Vladimir Putin. He's an autocratic dictator. He lives in the world of Machiavellian realpolitik. Way back in 2007, and he gave that speech in Munich. I remember it. I remember telling my students, and he said, "To hell with international law." And he talked about a resurgence of Novo Russia. He talked, if you study the worldview, the Weltanschauung of Putin, you understand, and I know that some of my colleagues think I exaggerate, but I'm a worldview man. I'm a values man. When he says to hell with international law, when he looks into the world, and you understand this, you're a student of Eastern European history, when he gets into that world of Kiev Rus, of Ivan the Great, when he sees that expansion of greater Russia, the great Russia with the little Russia, Ukraine and Belarus, he understands a Lebensraum, kind of almost like a National Socialist living space. He wants more than a buffer zone. He wants to expand Russia. Now, let's say that my colleague would say I'm over-exaggerating. Let's say that strategically, geopolitically, his move right now is to at least to get that southern part of Ukraine down the road. It may not be now, but he's sending a signal to Europe, to NATO, and to the United States. Never, ever will Georgia and Ukraine be in NATO. Romania went to NATO. Bulgaria went to NATO. Turkey's with NATO. I want that Black Sea, Caspian area to be Russia, Russia-controlled, Russian flow. And so my whole point is
the Nazis weren't socialist either.
Putin, and he is on this chess game. He's got more than a full house in a poker game, but in a chess game, he is.
Oh, absolutely. This is a theocratic fascist.
He's an extortionist. He's an invader. They've been at war since 2014. 14,000 Ukrainians have died because of that man.
Hopefully I get to give him a
because of his aggression.
Proverbial kick in the nuts.
Think of Adolf Hitler talking about the German speakers in Czechoslovakia and says, just give us the Sudetenland and there will be peace. That's a lie. There was not peace. And now Putin says, look, you give me what I want and there will be peace. It's just...
Well, yeah, but what does that have to do with U.S. policy?
For this greater Russia, this novel Russia. And I think...
You have properly demonized Putin, and I think
Wendy Sherman, people do not recognize...
For the most part, we agree.
Negotiations with North Korea. She was a dismal failure. She was involved in negotiations with Iran. She wrote a book called Not for the Faint of Heart. And in that book, I'm not making this up, Michael, she said that after 25 days of negotiation, she says, I started to cry. And the Iranian negotiators were flabbergasted.
Emotive argument.
They were like, what? She's crying. And
exactly.
She was crying.
The Nazis called themselves socialists because it was popular.
They say, well, we're not negotiating.
Co-opted the movement.
Going through preliminaries. Preliminaries, hell. And then they're saying,
Jake, you mentioned 2014 and the beginning of the war against Ukraine, but we can go with this history deeper.
Invasion of Crimea.
The 21st century. We got the Georgia War, which was actually caused by the ambitions of Georgia to join NATO, and we had a very strange answer of the Western world towards these ambitions. Georgia is still not a member state of NATO. Ukraine is not a member state of NATO. However, the societies of those countries...
Anyone that thinks that the Nazis were socialists does not know their history. Allow me to cite one of the most famous poems. World War II. First, they came for the socialists. And I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. The first people they came for were the socialists. Interesting.
Countries do have those ambitions. They showed the whole world that they are able to fight for those Western values. And it seems to me that this is exactly the reason why Russia is putting those issues as a actually starting point of the whole negotiations. Why is it so important for Russia to make sure that the NATO will not expand eastward? We've heard statements from NATO Secretary General that this is a policy that NATO countries cannot agree to. We will not give this kind of assurance to the Russia that no other countries will join NATO in the future.
I mean, it's an important issue.
After Putin gave his speech in Munich, he was in Romania.
I don't know how much of
President Bush.
Our business it is, really.
President Bush was talking about the sovereignty of Ukraine. And Putin says, you don't understand, George. Ukraine is not even a state. Putin does not respect the sovereignty of Ukraine and Georgia. And Putin understands something. When you see the expansion since the fall of the Soviet Union of NATO, the last thing Putin wants is democracy in Ukraine. He's an autocratic dictator, and he will do whatever.
I have had numerous arguments with Jake about how he's against democracy here in the United States. The nerve of this asshole. He literally told me that democracy was a woke mob, the tyranny of the majority. Mitch McConnell said it on the Senate floor the other day. This motherfucker isn't for democracy. And he goes on a show in Poland and talks about how fucking Putin isn't for democracy. The hypocrisy of these assholes.
Whatever it takes to make sure that Ukraine never goes the route of democracy. And I understand. Maybe I overplayed my point with Nova Russia, but this to me is a key element. It's Nova Russia with the geopolitics of making sure that democracy, the democratic processes, does not exist in Ukraine. And so what people forget is he is, through extortion, through intimidation, he's playing his game. And he's hoping and praying that he does not have to use force. But again, once again, NATO will back up. The Germans will kowtow because of the Deutschmark, because of the euro. And the
The
French.
Germans are buying a shit ton of natural gas and oil from Russia.
Putin, we're done. Enough is enough. We saw it happen in 1939. It's not happening in 2022, but I doubt it.
I do also have a hope of some European member states going into the sanity in this insane policy that Europe is actively in towards Russia. But we remember the French approach to the Georgian war in 2008, and it was similar. You mentioned the famous speech of Vladimir Putin in Munich. It was also actually a couple of days ago, Garry Kasparov, I think on MSNBC, stated that it took couple of years.
Did he say Anna Kasparian? Because she is not on MSNBC. Maybe she's a contributor now. I don't know.
Back there in 2007, what he's going to do through those years. Garry Kasparov reminded
Garry Kasparov,
the Soviet Union, about the collapse of the Soviet Union. This
My
is
bad.
Actually, the policy that is on table in the negotiations with United States right now. It looks,
he's a chess champion.
What we have on the table is trying to convince United States to leave the European sphere to the, maybe not to the Russians by themselves, but to the kind of tandem between Germany and Russia. You mentioned Deutsche Mark, which is the new version of euro in a way.
A Russian
There is also a Nord Stream
chess master.
political infrastructure making Germany and Russia a common entity that is trying to use this leverage to influence the whole Europe. What is your take on the approach of the new administration towards Nord Stream 2?
Yeah, once again, it's to me, it's a lot of talk. You know, ultimately, we understand that right now the globalists of the world are working against this bogus global warming war against petrol fuel, against fossil fuel, against carbon dioxide. And it's absolutely a shame what's happening here. They shut down our own pipeline from Canada into America.
Wait a minute. So he's saying that globalists want clean energy, which isn't true. First of all, I need a precising definition on who he's referring to as globalists. I would say it was the oligarchs of the world. But converting to clean energy would be one of the best ways to stick it to Russia, to stick it to Saudi Arabia, and make the U.S. independent. What the fuck are you talking about, Jake?
America, and they allow this because it's all about money and power. And now they're threatening the use of this. It'll never happen. I doubt it. I doubt it. Now they're going to go the route of an economic war, trying to maybe weaken the ruble, do what they can with the share bank and things related. And I know that sanctions had somewhat of an effect, but not enough to deter Putin from doing his ultimate goal.
The effect, the repercussions of sanctions falls on the people of Russia, not Putin.
In my lifetime will never be in Ukraine unless the European nations and NATO have the spine to be willing to sacrifice to stop this tyrant.
He's advocating for war. He's advocating our involvement in Russia.
Extortionist. He's an invader. He's a murderer. He's a killer. He's an autocratic dictator. And they think they're going to talk their way through this. It ain't going to happen. Now I know.
So Jake, why do they talk then? Because this is actually the thing that I cannot understand.
I don't ever see us going to war with Russia because we're too economically linked already. Countries that trade with each other don't usually go to war. That's why you've seen in the last 50 years we pick on little-ass countries to keep the defense contractors happy. We feed them countries that are of no consequence in their minds. Good Lord. Once again, I need a definition of who exactly these globalists are. Are we talking about the international business community? because they do not want clean energy. I mean, I don't even see us getting into some kind of proxy war. I really don't. Fuck. I can't believe this motherfucker is actually going to Poland on a Poland outlet and advocating, on a Polish outlet, and advocating for war with Russia on behalf of the United States. Dude that's hosting this show, Rock Russian. Please know that Jake Jacobs does not represent the mainstream thought of the United States. We do not want war with Russia.
There must be some hidden agenda here. They were talking for 8 hours. What we hear from the official statements is that no decisions have been made.
I am all about sending you to Russia to turn Putin into a femboy bottom.
Declarations
I want to watch.
and the preconditions
That would be fun.
That were proposed by the Russia. And still, 8 hours of talk about nothing? We can talk about nothing for 30 seconds. That's enough.
Michael, I know from your studies, you and I both know that these are what lifelong diplomats, bureaucrats do. They yak, they talk, they have wishful thinking. They want to believe that they can somehow, through the power of words, persuade Putin to be something he isn't. And this is the hard lesson in life, where you need to look at an individual, an extortionist, an invader as he is, not as you wish him to be. Talk will not get us through this. And I would pray and hope that NATO would have the muscle and France would have the muscle. Thank God that England...
that NATO would have the muscle. Do you know what that means? The United States military. Do you know who NATO's muscle is? The United States fucking military. Jake was a Trump supporter, by the way. I did say femboy bottom.
The UK, United Kingdom, and America are giving weaponry, but it's not enough. Old man Biden, von Hindenburg Biden, already says no American troops will go into Ukraine. Well, why don't you just shout it from the rooftops, Putin? We're not going to stand up to you. They're going to try every little magic trick they can to stop Putin. It's not going to work. You and I have understood the nature of dictators, of autocrats throughout history.
Send your son to war. Send your fucking kid to war.
And it's peace through strength. Strength. I mean, my God, when Putin was lieutenant colonel with the KGB in 1985, when Reagan went to Geneva, he let Mikhail Gorbachev know in no uncertain terms, you will not mess with the United States of America. And that's what we need. And this is why Putin has watched Biden. I was on your show last summer telling you this is what was going to happen. And I knew you knew that. But my only point is, why is it some guy like me, a little teacher in Wisconsin, can say to the world, wake up and understand that Putin means what he says. And he very cleverly on this chessboard.
But it's none of our fucking business.
Without firing one shot. And he will get away with it.
And he's calling those shots, and he is making those actions. Actually,
oh, what is that mug? That Trump as like a Jesus figure?
Calling those shots, and he is.
I can't tell who was on that mug. I don't think it's Trump. That is really weird, especially for a religious person to have.
Is making those actions actually part of a real politics right now, which is sad in a way. Hopefully, nothing will happen in terms of pulling the troops out of Central Europe. We've heard this kind of statements and assurance of the American administration. Do you find it credible?
Oh, God forbid. God forbid. Like I told you before, if it was up to me, I'd have 50,000 troops in Poland. I'd take them out of Germany and I'd put them in Poland myself.
Yes, we're well aware you're a
No
warmonger.
uncertain terms. That this the buck stops here. Harry S. Truman used to have on his desk as president, the buck stops here. Remember, behind me you can see an old newspaper of FDR dying. At Yalta, that was 2 months before he died. He was old and feeble, and he was manipulated by Joseph Stalin and Poland.
He's on that God shit.
Eastern
That's
Europe
what
suffered
Jake's
for
been
it.
smoking.
We don't want Europe to suffer today because they're not willing to put up to go up against the Stalin-Putin character, autocrat.
Jake, thank you very much for your expertise. The knowledge that comes from history is the best part of your analysis. Hope that we are going to see each other soon.
What knowledge that comes from history? What analysis? He just ranted like a lunatic. Oh, Jesus.